How hard did you push it? Till I black out? Yes. Numerous times, yes.
Hey, MuniciPals, this is Chris and Ashton. What's going on, buddy?
Not much, man. Just like last week, or we were going to do this last week, but the last time we did this, got the 2019 Masters on in the background. So watch my boy Top 10 Tony hit a bunch of great iron shots and miss short putts. But yeah, so that's what I'm doing right now.
Sick. Well, me and you had a great last Friday. Little pre-Valentine's date between the two of us. Doing a little loop of 27 holes, one at Bodega Bay, starting out there in the morning, getting a little wind halfway through our round. And then after that, we jetted over to Northwood and got 9 holes in there. I know I've played both of those tracks. You have not seen either one of those. You want to explain your experience firsthand at Bodega when we showed up?
I would love to. And I think also, I just want to sort of give a shout out to my co-host here because we got at work, we got the day off on Friday out of the blue. I text Chris and I would say that I'll put the over under at 9 minutes. We had this entire day booked because that's the whole point of what we're going to talk about today is these pretty amazing golf trips that, our boy Big Chris puts together, and Friday was no different. So I didn't know anything about Bodega Bay. Not going to lie, even though I'd been up there in the last couple of years, did not know if we were going north or south at first. Don't forget, I've lived here for a while, but just kind of experiencing the larger Bay Area. So yeah, Bodega Bay was special. I mean, we pulled in, really wasn't anybody there. But I think the bigger thing was, just to cut to the chase, was we basically had a leisurely just over 4-hour round, just the two of us. And Bodega Bay, basically, the front 9 is inland and challenging with lots of hills, but the back 9 is basically just opens up and the whole thing's on the ocean. So we got a 4-hour round, pretty great pace of play, just me and Big Chris, and views of the ocean, where he's really given me kind of a really kind of like 101 on golf on the ocean. And it's a really special thing. So we had a really great day, and that's how we started off. And I'll let Big Chris jump in, but Northwood was very special as well. But Bodega Bay blew me away. I mean, I don't think the way I put it to my buddy is, I don't think I've had a course exceed expectations more than that one did, which is, pretty high praise, but especially for $60 with a cart, great greens, pace of play, I really don't know how we're supposed to beat that.
I mean, Bodega is a hidden gem. A lot of people forget about it in the Bay Area. They always think of Monterey for all the coastal tracks. There's an immense amount of coastal tracks in the Bay Area. I mean, you can play Metropolitan, you can play Monarch Bay, you can play Bodega Bay. And all of these tracks are $60 with the cart. And even cheaper if you're a walker. So going out and playing these tracks, Bodega Bay is a Robert Trent Jones track that the front, like you said, the front 9 is very hilly and very undulating, and it's all over the place. Then you get onto the back 9 and it's wide open, but the wind just kicks you in the mouth. And I think we had a downhill par 4 that we had like 20-mile-an-hour winds coming straight at our face. And I think I hit a driver like 210. It was just awful. It just stood up in the air, came right back at us. But the whole time it was 65, sunny, beautiful. I would say 13, 14 of the holes probably have ocean views. You just can't beat it. $60. The course was in great shape. I mean, it's just kind of a hidden gem, just tucked away about an hour outside of San Francisco. And then to end it, I mean, we then go straight over 30 minutes northeast of it, into Northwood, which is just complete change of scenery. We go from this wide open oceanfront property to dense forest with this 9-hole just tucked into the trees right on a river. And I mean, I'll let you kind of go into what your experience was when we pulled into that parking lot.
Well, I think first of all, big shout out to Google for taking us not to the parking lot, but to the back part of the golf course into a very kind of residential neighborhood. That was pretty funny. But yeah, I think we pulled in, neither one of us said anything. And I think, Chris, you looked at me and you were like, this thing hasn't changed ever. Like, this is how it's always been. And it definitely feels like, I don't know, like when I'm sort of making up this story, but when I think about like my grandfather playing golf, like in the 1950s, where it's like, you know, everybody knows each other and they eat at the grill. It doesn't have a name. It's not a restaurant. It's just, they call it like a grill, you know. Again, I'm making this up as I go, but that's sort of how it felt. It's like, I felt like, I mean, there was an old couple when he walked up. I mean, the dude looked very old, like 75 years old. And him and his wife were eating breakfast. Like the dude's putting scrambled eggs on toast. And it was 2 o'clock. Like scrambled eggs on toast with like grape jelly. And I was like, in my head, I'm like, this guy probably comes here and has breakfast every day, right? Like
everybody that works there and is on property definitely are locals. This is their watering hole, their restaurant, their golf course. It's everything. I mean, the two older gentlemen that run the pro shop were just, I mean, they're gems all in themselves. I mean, the guy comes out, we're on the putting green, just warming up a little bit. We had about 15 minutes before our tee time. And he was, where'd you come from? Just starts chatting us up. We tell him we played Bodega Bay before we came over. And he started asking us about conditions and how it was out there. And I mean, the friendliest people, but then you also have the old ornery lady that runs the bar and grill. Yep. And I mean, this lady doesn't take shit from nobody. I mean, so I
think you mean especially me when I go in with my my temporary California ID. Again, I'm, you know, almost 29 years old. I walk in there with my temporary ID and she goes, nope. I said, pardon? She was like, I'm going to need a photo ID. I was like, well, I don't have one. She's like, well, then I can't serve you alcohol.
Yeah, she shut you down real quick.
Yeah, and then Chris goes in and orders for us. But yeah. And then also after that, I was also told, again, this is not meant to bash Northwood. We had a great experience, but I tried to go into the bathroom after the 6th hole. And the woman told me that because I was not a customer of the bar and restaurant, I was unable to use the restroom.
After she denied you being a customer.
Yeah. So basically I needed to order like a Diet Coke in order to pee, which that's literally counterintuitive, right? It's let me fill my bladder so that I can then come in here and relieve myself. This is not a bathroom podcast, fortunately, but that is definitely a unique experience. And to your point, that woman's probably worked there for 25 years and is pretty interested in this, you know, curly headed dope coming from the city to play golf. I'm pretty sure that's probably what was going through her mind.
Absolutely. I mean, the people you meet, I mean, they're a whole different breed out there. I mean, we had these guys in front of us that had to have been in their 50s, just blazing joint after joint. I mean, the whole course smelled like tree. It was the funniest thing you've ever seen. And these guys were slowing down hole by hole. It got slower and slower.
On 6th green, well, first of all, shout out to Chris. He had a wedge shot to about 6 feet, made it for birdie. I sculled my wedge over the green, but I go to hit my shot. They're on the tee. They're blasting like Journey, right? It's like, I'm like, what is this song? Like, it's basically like right at, it's our parent generation. And I go, hey guys, there's 2 wedges back here. The guy goes, oh shit. It's like, I'm too high. I forgot.
Yeah, it's too high. I forgot my wedges.
Yeah, like I've never heard that in a golf course. Granted, I've heard, Big Chris literally forgot to hit a tee shot at the beginning of this year because he himself was stoned, but
that's true.
Yes. But yes, these gentlemen left 2 wedges because they were too high. So yes, I mean, Northwood is a vibe. And also because even with that, I'm very much wear whatever you want on the golf course, but I can tell you there's not a world in which I'd ever wear jeans. I like jeans. I don't think that they're, have their place on a golf course. You're looking for, to be a little bit athletic, but these gentlemen.
Yeah, I was going to say they're not athletic form of pant, but
no. And these gentlemen wearing jeans, listening to Journey, getting high and leaving clubs, which honestly, do I want to do that every day? No. Was it fun for a Friday afternoon? Hell yeah.
most hardcore dad vibe ever. Like, I mean, they were out there completely, had their 2 hours apart from their kids and family, and they were doing it big. So I'm not going to hate on them too bad. They were hilarious, super courteous, great guys in front of us to keep us laughing through that round. So, great Friday. Great new tracks that I could introduce Ash to, which was awesome to do because I got to grow up basically playing Bodega Bay, for weeks at a time with my family. As you guys know, in the earlier podcast, we've talked about that a little bit. So it was really great to be able to get out there and do that 27. We got some great things to talk about on the podcast today. We got a great guest as well that's going to be joining us, our buddy Jack. We're going to be talking about our first golf trip that we all went on at the end of October, I think it was. And it was the first time that I got to meet Ashton. First time we got to meet our friend Christian. I got to meet Jack a few times playing Rick, what we call Carica, which is in Alameda, one of our favorite tracks here. And I would say Jack is a local legend out there by this point. He's played there probably more than most people in the area. No further ado, let's introduce our buddy Jack. Jack, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
You want me to just go? Okay, I'll just go. I'll just go, man. Hi, I'm Jack. I'd consider at this point pretty good buddies with both Chris and Ashton. I think I met both of you way before the trip. Met Chris first. I remember at Carica. I think it was like my first 5 straight weekends of playing Carica at one point. Met him with our other buddy, Chris Hussey, who hopefully will get on the pod at some point, either during or after the trip. And I met Ashton.
By the way, we haven't told everybody, we're going on a second trip. This is the podcast we're talking about. The first trip we went on. Second trip, we got our great buddy, Chris Hussey on. Continue, okay. Jack.
Yeah, and then I met Ashton, I think Carica might have been actually our first round together too. Anyway, I met both of them at Carica.
It makes sense to be at Carica because you are the mayor of Carica.
Yeah, pretty much the de facto mayor of Carica. And just kind of vibe with them, met them through RGC, and, just love the stuff that they both like to talk about. And, playing golf with them is great because we're all it's that point of, having different good skill sets with each other. And that's why I like playing with them. The different skill sets they bring to the game, as well as the enjoyment that they bring to the game is amazing. And that's why I've been playing with them for a couple months now.
Oh, shucks, Jack. Oh, I appreciate that. So basically one night I decided that I was going to start planning out golf trips. And so I've basically planned out 30 different golf trips, fully planned out, ready to go. Anytime I want to launch them, I could definitely start doing these golf trips. But a really easy one, especially when we were in the pandemic, I thought would be just to do a SoCal golf trip. So I reached out to RGC, SF, which we're all members of. And I've played with a bunch of people through there, and everybody that I've met through RGC at that point has been amazing and awesome to play with. So I decided to just go, throw it out there and see if I got anybody that decided they wanted to, go on a random golf trip with random strangers to a random land of random golf courses. So, planned out this trip, posted it in the RGC, and I had 3 psychopaths that hit me up that decided to get in a van, a white van, with a stranger driving it, and drive over 300 miles to SoCal to play strange golf courses. So 2 of the psychos are here, Jack and then Ashton. And you know what? when I put it out there, I had no expectations of who was going to join, who was going to go. Did not meet Ashton prior to this this journey. And our buddy Christian, I didn't meet him prior to this journey either. Jack, like he said, we did get to play, I think once or twice at Carica prior to going out. And, Jack was kind of the guy that knew everybody prior to going. He's played a couple rounds, at least with each of us. But it was pretty much on a whim. I mean, let's have Ashton talk a little bit about, me showing up at 5:30 in the morning to your house, blasting music with weed smoke coming out the windows with two strangers.
Yeah, it seriously was like Scooby-Doo. But I don't know if you remember this, Chris, but I was thinking back, reflecting before we did this podcast. I wasn't supposed to go because I was kind of unexpectedly in between jobs, or basically I was transitioning from being a consultant to being full-time somewhere. And I wasn't sure because I was staying in an Airbnb. So I was trying to decide if I was going to go to Hawaii for a month. I was originally, when I asked you, I was like, hey, I can't go because I'm going to go to Hawaii. Turns out I thought that was a horrible idea because of COVID. So long story short, I had a little bit of time in between jobs and I was like, wait, it lines up perfectly. And so, I reached out to Chris, who I didn't know, but just the way kind of Chris carries himself in the group, like his kind of passion for golf was very, I don't know. It felt like he was like a local legend, despite the fact that I hadn't met him. And so I was just excited to be with him, to get to know him. And then of course, like Jack, I had played with many, many times, including several, at least one 36 hole day, and then had played with Christian once as well too. So it was definitely unique. I think to Chris's point, I think 5 a.m. I've got my golf bag, which I carry kind of in a travel bag, which I probably shouldn't bring on this golf trip. Not enough space.
It was the most ridiculous move I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
It took up so much space.
And now that I think about it, it was like it has those pockets on the side which like hold like extra keys and stuff. I didn't need any of that stuff. Like I don't know.
You could have brought that and no duffel bag and probably put all your clothes and golf bag in there and would have been content.
To be clear, I'm going to do a better job this time because first of all, I pull up and Chris like, yo, what's up? And then the look on your face, I've never told you this. When he saw the travel bag, I thought you had a moment of being like, yeah, I really wish this guy wasn't coming on the trip.
I questioned you a bit. I was like, I don't think we're on an airplane. I have no clue what this travel bag situation is about.
It wasn't great, but what was great though is
we made it work.
5 a.m. I see a white minivan rolling up. And then Big Chris kind of the only word I'll say it like to use the verb of the day. He kind of bounds out of the car and is like, "Yo, what's up, man?" I'm like, this is going to be a good time. Sure enough, it was.
I'm a very large man, very jovial man.
That's a good word.
I basically present myself as a gigantic teddy bear. So when I show up a little bit stoned early in the morning and, with open arms to a total stranger, I think Ashton probably got a little bit of ease that he was getting in a car full of love and friendliness. So,
although the one thing I will say, and this will be part of the next part of the story, we're vibing, super into the, all super excited. To be clear, I'm happy to get up, especially for golf. I'm not a morning person. When I found out about an hour in that we had scheduled a 5 a.m. tee time to make sure that we had gotten to our first tee time 2.5 hours early, I kind of had a moment of being like, whoa, wait, what? Like, what? Why did I wake up at 4:30 this morning? Like, how much time do we need to hit balls? And in fairness to Big Chris, we did it right. We had to have lunch. But at that moment of like where I'm grumpy and haven't had coffee and I'm like, yo, it's 5:50 and I could have slept till 8 a.m. I definitely had a moment of like, what kind of plan is this guy cooking up?
So we'll go over the plan a little bit. So what I sent out to the itinerary, I sent out to all these guys. I planned a tight schedule. So it was pickup in the city. So I live in Antioch. If anybody's not familiar with the Bay Area, Antioch is about 45 to 50 minutes without traffic, which is a very rare thing in the Bay Area. Luckily, we left as early as we did, so I didn't hit traffic. So coming from Antioch, I had to pick up the two boys in the city, Christian and Ashton. got there by 5:30, 5:45, and then we had to jet to the South Bay to pick up our boy Jack down in Sunnyvale. And then we jetted to our first place, Monarch Dunes. So basically our trip was 4 days. We left Thursday morning, came back Sunday afternoon, Sunday night. And so what we did was we left to go play Monarch Dunes the first day, Thursday. Then we woke up Friday. We played Cypress Ridge, jetted over to the coast, and got Sandpiper in for an afternoon round. Woke up early in the morning. We jetted down and played Los Robles Greens. Then jetted over and played an afternoon round at Rustic Canyon. Then Sunday we woke up and we played Rustic Canyon again, and then drove all the way back to the bay. So we had a tight schedule. But everybody was down. Everybody was stoked about it. So we got in the car, drove down to pick up Jack. We showed up to Monarch Dunes. And like Ashton said, we were fairly early, but I wanted to make sure we got some good food in us. We got a good range session. We got a good stretch before we got out and played, because we were in the car for about 4.5, 5 hours before we got to our first golf course. So again, Monarch Dunes was our first adventure. So showing up to Monarch Dunes, what was your guys' first experience, expectations coming into it? What did you guys think of the course when we first drove into the parking lot?
Are you asking me or?
I'm asking both of you.
I keep thinking Jack is going to dive in.
I'll just take it right up and
you know, if that's because I think Big Chris is going to fucking strangle both of us if he has to answer that question a third time.
Monarch Dunes for me, I'll be honest, man, I didn't do any research except for Cypress Ridge and Rustic were the only two places that I did research for. Sandpiper doesn't really count because it was an episode of No Laying Up's Tourist Sauce that I saw it and I was like, I want to play there one day. But Monarch Dunes was, I think driving into the parking lot was first seeing I think it was like the back nine. Essentially, you get a look out from the restaurant area, and I was just like, man, I've never really played where there's like force carry over water. I was kind of like, oh shoot, man, this might not play well. But it was like the parking lot was like really good view. And I think it was overall, I think the course definitely exceeded expectations for me. What about you, Ash?
Yeah, I agree. Because I think the one thing that I noticed when we got there that I didn't necessarily see on the website was there were more houses than I expected.
That's what I thought too. Coming
from Atlanta, I kind of have I have an aversion to kind of what I think of as subdivision golf. And so it's not always fair because houses on a course doesn't mean subdivision golf. But when we pulled in, I thought it was going to be subdivision golf. And then we played. It did not feel that way. And I would say that this might be the course, honestly, that most exceeded expectations on the trip, very honestly.
Easily.
I thought conditions were great. I think also too, this is not obviously a diss on the course, but I think that part of it also is the vibes, right? I mean, I know like we're probably all in the same boat. Like we woke up early, we did some driving, we got there. And like, I think that this, even though I was like most excited for probably Sandpiper of the trip, I would say that maybe this was when like, I don't know, like I was just most excited. We were actually playing golf, you know? And so, but I think that was the first thing that hit me. And to Jack's point, I really liked the vibe because it was very clear like the clubhouse was a real kind of community place. So even though like, you know, they did a great job during like, obviously we were there during COVID times with some of the like tables and stuff, all really good spaced out. We had a really nice lunch. You could kind of oversee several holes. And you could definitely see how, you know, especially even in non-COVID times, that I imagine that clubhouse is really kind of an epicenter for the community. And that's something I always really appreciate. You know, a place doesn't have to, like, I'm not saying it has to have like an expensive back patio, but when you get the vibe that, you know, again, a patio or kind of around the golf shop is like a very central piece to the community. It was very clear there. So, and I also remember too, weather was fantastic. Like, I just remember being like
beautiful,
warm but not hot. We're off. We're off. We're on our golf trip. I mean, vibes were really high. And selfishly, looking back at my scorecard, I kind of barfed on myself in the back, but I played pretty well. So I think that one thing we'll have to talk a lot about through these kind of trips, like the knowing up guys have said, how do you divorce how you play with a course, right? If you got a pebble and shoot 100, like, you consider that fun? Like, I don't know. That's a larger discussion we'll have, but there's certain courses out here I was like, it sucked. And I was like, it didn't suck. You suck. Like, you shot 90. So it's like, that's your fault,
Yeah, I mean, with Monarch Dunes, pulling into the parking lot, it didn't really reveal itself to you, because when you roll in, it's a big like pond lake with a big fountain, and you see 18 and 9, but you actually have to drive up a hill and around the corner to get to this hidden putting and chipping area that has the 9th green basically almost attached to that putting green. And then they had the first tee off to the left, and it's almost a complete world in complete separation between the front and back 9, which I really appreciated with that track, because the front 9 was very much feeling like it was built on sand dunes and had a lot of natural fescue, where the back 9 almost felt like it was almost in a forest. But then you had some holes that did feel a little subdivision-y, because there were some holes that really were, right on some of the houses. But I really, really liked the mixture of holes that you had in there. That was my biggest thing that I fell in love with that track. And anytime I probably go through that area, I'm going to make it a point to probably stop in at Monarch and there. I mean, I think, again, our vibes were definitely crazy high, because, we were on a little bit of a high, meeting each other, being able to talk about, public tracks, where we came from, introducing ourselves to each other until we got there. And then we really got down to business and, started our, 6-round skins match, which was epic. Carry over to all the courses that we played. KPs carried over through all 6 rounds. It was just, that was probably a great addition to the trip as well, having that in there and kind of getting to know who everybody was on that first round as well. Because again, none of us really knew who each other were, knew our personalities, how we were going to mesh and vibe. And with that drive down, it was sick to kind of get to know you guys as people, and then get to know you guys as golfers, because as we all know, playing public golf, playing with random strangers, meeting new people, you really get to know somebody and really know who they are by the 3rd hole.
Yeah.
I was told that by my dad when I was younger, and it's 100% true. And you can tell who somebody is by the 3rd hole of playing 18 holes with somebody. And then by the 18th hole, you have a complete spectrum of that person's personality and how they go about their business and their lives. So, I mean, I was blessed to be able to say that, I vibed super hard with all of you guys on this trip. And, Monarch was just the beginning. So, after Monarch, we passed out, went to our hotel that night, woke up super early in the morning, and right down the street from Monarch, there was this awesome Peter Jacobson track called Cypress Ridge, which we can all attest was probably the most ridiculous greens we experienced on the entire trip. Peter kicked us all in the dick super hard. It was just awful. And it was super early because we had to drive another hour to our next destination at Sandpiper. So, going in there, vibes were definitely high that morning. We grabbed coffee and breakfast, headed over to Cypress. And I think we got there about 20 minutes before tea time. So we didn't have a lot of time for warm up that morning, but we putted around a little bit. And then what did you guys think about when we stepped onto the first tee, the comparison between that and then Monarch Dunes?
Yeah, I can jump in. I have very strong memories. So one, there wasn't a range, so we couldn't warm up. But yeah, I think we were cutting it a bit close. Two, I vividly remember being on the first tee and being like really cold. Like I remember I like had to put on a sweatshirt. Like I felt like I brought a sweatshirt not thinking I was going to need it. And like I was on the first tee and I had that moment which just seemed to have a lot of like, okay, so like no practice swings, no warm up shots. I'm wearing like a big thick sweatshirt. I just remember it being really cold. And then, I think this will kind of be the theme for this course. I remember I had a great drive right down the middle. I had a pitching wedge that landed on the front part of the green and rolled to the back part of the green. And then I three-jacked, which I was looking at you guys, I pulled up my Gin app, my first 9 holes at Cypress Ridge, bogey, double, bogey, par, bogey, double, bogey, bogey, bogey for a first front 9 46. Oh, and then I started off the back 9 double, double. So, I mean, these guys can attest to it. I can't confirm the pro shop couldn't either because, I mean, I don't think they even probably have a step meter. The guy guessed they were rolling, he said, quote, around 13, because afterwards I came into pee after the round and I was like, dude, those greens. And the guy literally starts like cackling. And he was like, yeah, he's like, they weren't very fun today, were they? I was like, well, I mean, you couldn't really keep a ball in the green. And then like, they're super fast. So, I mean, I think that those are unequivocally the fastest greens I've ever putted on. And I was talking about Big Chris on Friday. I wouldn't like, they were in Purina, right? But I don't want to be putting, it taught me that I don't want to be putting at that speed. I mean, it was like challenging to the point of like making my brain hurt. I remember being cold, the rock hard green. And yeah, I mean, Peter Jacobson made me three-jack from 20 feet to start my round. And I was like, and here we go.
Oh man. And then you guys remember on the par 3 on the back 9, we run into one of the kids that works in the pro shop. He's playing behind us and he gets on right before we get onto the green. He's coming up on tee box. So we call him up. He hits his ball up a little short. He's just about to chip on. And we ask him, we're like, hey, are the greens always like this? And he looks at us with like dead straight face. No, I've never experienced our greens this fast ever. And we're like, sick. So the first time we ever experienced this course, we got them dialed up as hard as they could ever make them for some wild reason. It's not like they were having a tournament, not like they were having anybody coming through. They were just dialed up, ready to go to just destroy us. And I think all of us got just destroyed. I would say that had to have been probably the worst round for all 4 of us collectively. I don't know. What do you think, Jack? Do you think that was easily the worst round for us? And I wouldn't say that we played bad. I would just say the conditions were tough.
There were a lot of, people would say like gettable holes there, I think, especially because of how like forgiving some of the fairways are in terms of, if you hit it here, it's going to roll out to a good spot. Or I remember that one fairway that was like, you hit it, basically you just hit it straight and your ball's going to roll down towards the green. I think that's where I yelled at Christian for being Big Bird or something. But yeah, it definitely wasn't a super solid round for anyone. It was unique. And it was like the one thing I'll call out about it was that when we got there, same thing that you guys were saying about Monarch Dunes, where it's like you could see the houses at Cypress. I didn't really realize that we were in like housing development type area too.
No, we weren't hitting tee shots into people's backyards, and we weren't, the greens weren't backed up to people's yards and stuff like that. I mean, I would say for both of these courses being, what you would consider subdivision courses, the development of the tracks left a lot of room of separation between the houses and the course, which was, really great and pleasant to experience, because nothing is worse to a public golfer than having legitimate out of bounds lines into someone's backyard that's built right on the course. I mean, it drives you freaking nuts. I mean, yeah, we're all public golfers. None of us are professionals. So, I mean, we're going to have those shots that are going to go right. But, you know, having subdivision golf where you're going to just lose balls left and right into people's backyards is never fun. So I would say that's one thing I really loved about these tracks is, like you said, subdivision golf that wasn't subdivision golf. You never felt that way. Cypress Ridge was very tree lined. It had a lot of water hazards as well. Great placed bunkers. I can't say anything bad about the two, first tracks that we got to play. They were both really, really good warm-ups getting into the middle of the trip that we really were all excited to get into.
The only thing I would add, Chris, I think looking, I mean, again, this is where I'm trying to divorce my score from the equation. But as I'm looking through my scorecard from that day, and when you talked about the water as you click around, I think my only advice to people would be maybe play one tee up. Because I mean, I think with the tees we were playing, it's only 6,400, which for us, that's not what we'd consider long. But I think the point is, if the greens are going to be rolling that fast and they're going to be that hard, it's just a lot easier to be coming in with a lower club, right? So, I mean, I think we played that day. I think, like I said, it was like 6,400. So I don't know. I would just say that maybe us playing one tee up could have mitigated it. But I mean, to your point,
we played from the back. So we played 68.
No. Did we really?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, we played from the back.
I thought we played blue.
Oh, okay.
I have it in here as blue. I mean, if it was 68, I might have shot 100.
Well, maybe my mind's deceiving me because it kicked me so hard that I just want to think it was from 68.
Do you remember your score?
No, I have all my scorecards, but never keep it in front of me. I don't want to go back and relive that horrid round that I had at Cypress.
Peter Jacobson just laughing at us.
Oh my God, fucking Peter. So after we got kicked in the ass by Peter Jacobson, we got back in McVanzy, which is the nickname that we all came up with for our van that we rented for the trip. Since we're all from the Bay Area and all big public golf fanatics, of course, we had to represent Alistair McKenzie on the trip. So we named our van McVanzy, hopped on in McVanzy, drove down to the coast, down to Sandpiper, and pulling into that parking lot, man, I will hand it to Sandpiper. The views pulling into that parking lot were absolutely incredible. I mean, you see right over the cliffs, right into the ocean of Santa Barbara. I mean, it was, I don't want to speak for you guys, but I know it took my breath away pulling into that parking lot. What were your guys' feelings about that? You go for it, Ash.
Yeah, I mean, very honestly, because of no laying up, I think this was the course I was most excited for, because we talked about this recently with Bodega, Chris, but coming from the East Coast, I'm just very unfamiliar with coastal golf. I mean, the only time specifically kind of West Coast golf, right? So I think for me, just like seeing the views of the ocean from what I had seen online, I was super, super excited. And I think the way I would categorize Sandpiper is it is by no means the best golf course that I've ever played. But I think, and I said this earlier tonight to my buddy, I think personally that 10, 11, 12, and 13 could go toe to toe with like my favorite holes of golf that I've ever played. And to your point, because of the setting, because we had all gotten beat up, kind of the middle of the golf trip was sort of the crescendo of the golf trip. We all kind of got beaten up in the cold that morning. Being able to pull into Santa Barbara, the weather it may not have been 70. It felt like it was 70 and perfect. It was warm, but not hot. And then we got there and I remember I looked at kind of the snack bar and saw the options for cocktails and beers. It was just like, oh, okay. So like this place is going to have everything that we want right now. It's Friday afternoon, vibes are high. I remember this because I remember bought Jack's lunch. Jack got like a prime rib sandwich or something. I mean, it was just like, it wasn't, I mean, I know Big Chris loves his hot dog and you can talk about that, but like, I was like, Jack
their hot dog was on point too. I would definitely give them an 8.6 out of 10 for hot dog level.
Yeah. And Jack got like a French dip or some kind of like steak sandwich though. I remember he told me and I was like, oh damn. Yeah. And I think the only hitch was on us I remember the only stressful thing was we ordered our food like kind of close to our tea time. And they had to have some nice older gentleman drive us our food on like, I think like one fairway. That was a bit of a stressful way to start, but basically from the beginning, it was like, I don't know. I was basically running down the first fairway because I was so excited.
Jack, talk about what you experienced when we pulled up to Sandpiper, what you thought when we arrived.
Yeah, it was it's just like seeing all those drone shots beforehand, and I think even in their Instagram, their website, some really good shots like of just like these sweeping views of those like ocean holes, and it's such a great. Like it's great views, but to me, for some reason, like the whole walk, I actually really enjoyed, just the way that the course was routed. I think it was just, I don't know what it was, man, but it was like such a great walk for me, even though at that point of the trip, I wasn't really like, I was in my head about my swing and how I was scoring, and I was doing, less of having fun. Versus just kind of thinking about like, oh man, how am I going to hit good shots kind of deal. So, but I think in terms of just, like when you have like a family member that you love and they kind of just, hey, come here, give me a hug. And they're that like huggy type of person. Like that's kind of what I felt at Sandpiper.
Yeah. You felt like you got a big old hug by the golf course when we arrived.
Yeah.
It was nice, warming, feeling.
It was welcoming. That's what it was. That was the huge thing. And it wasn't super like, people weren't uppity and things like that. So it was just kind of like, hey, like come play golf. That's what it felt like over at Sandpiper for me.
The course, like Ash was talking about, the course was, what it was. I would say the front nine, if I'm going to be 100% honest, was, very plain Jane. I wouldn't say that there was anything that I could pick out of the ordinary that made the front nine, stand out from any other golf course that I've played. I can't remember was it fifth green, sixth green that you come up onto the top of the hill? Fifth green. So that was probably the one really great moment on the front nine. You come up onto the green of the fifth hole, and it just overlooks the entire, coastline of Santa Barbara. And it's just, if you've never been to Santa Barbara used to be a oil rig. The whole coast used to be lined with oil rigs, and it was actually dealt with a giant oil spill back in the day, and it turned all the beaches in Santa Barbara black for a long period of time. So you can still see a lot of those oil rigs out in the water from the golf course, which is just, in my opinion, really cool. Like you're not going to experience that a lot of coastal courses, to be able to have that kind of history and, still be able to see them floating out there, which is just really, really unique to Sandpiper and what it is. And, I've heard that there's going to be a renovation coming of Sandpiper here soon. So I'm really, really excited that we got to play it prior to the renovation. Am I mistaken? It is Tom Doak that's going to be doing the renovation for Sandpiper. Yeah. So Tom Doak's the guy that's going to be going out there. He's been out there a few times from what I've heard on other, publications, that he's really done some, scoping of the course of what he can do. So, it's already a beautiful track. Like you were talking about, 10 through, 14 is just unmatched. I mean, I've never played a course where I got to tee off from the beach. I mean, that that was one of the coolest things I've ever experienced. Hitting my driver up the hill back on top of the cliffs. I mean, it was just spectacular. And then playing that par 3 down to the beach was, oh man. I mean, I can't explain how incredible that is, where you're putting and people are walking along the beach maybe 150 feet to 100 feet from you. I mean, it's just an experience you're not going to experience anywhere else.
I wonder if people ever get sick of that, like members that play there, you know? They're just like, oh man, like we're playing Sandpiper again.
I'm pretty sure Poosh from, Poosh Daddy from Iration, who we love, I'm pretty sure every time he plays, I feel like on his Instagram, it's like he does like him walking down number 10 every time. Because that's how I would feel. I remember walking down that hole and just being like, again, so basically it's this like downhill par 4, dog leg left, overlooking the ocean with this kind of crazy hourglass green. You go over to 11, downhill par 3 that like literally if you were to hit one club too much, you're going to go in the sand. Walk through this like cool sand. It's like sand and grass. Like it looks natural, but it's not. You're teeing off, as Big Chris said, from the beach up the hill, this uphill dog leg to the right. And then you have this big, beautiful par 5, which like is actually pretty short, but you have this kind of forced landing carry, or this forced carry. And it's just like a really kind of very special group of holes. And also I vividly remember for me, I look back at my scorecard just now, this day I made 3 bogeys, 2 doubles and the rest pars. And I doubled 12 and 13, but it's because I remember I ordered a double transfusion and I got a large hazy IPA. And as you guys know, when I get drunk, my swing speed picks up and I hit hooks. So I was hitting the mega hook and made doubles on 12 and 13. So it's kind of fun to go back to a scorecard and be like, I remember those in alcohol infused set of doubles, which, so be it.
I love how you guys can remember like pretty much every single hole that we've played during the trip. I'm over here like trying to remember what I felt during those rounds more so. I don't know if you guys have noticed that, but I'm not the type of person to remember, like, oh, I had, obviously you have your scorecards to look at, but like, oh yeah, I had a, XYZ score on these holes. But for me, it's more like, oh yeah, I remember that 8 iron into the green or whatever, which is fun. Like it's fun, like seeing that difference of like how we play, or like, like you guys were saying, like difference in personalities that we bring to the golf course and things like that. I think that was one of the things that I really enjoyed in the trip was like Chris was the one who's managing all of our, match play and skins rounds. And then like, basically everyone was just like there to have a good time, and, seeing how Ashton played versus how Christian played and things like that was really something like, I think one of the bigger experiences that I had of the trip versus just the golf courses too.
The difference in personalities and the people that were on the trip, we all meshed really well. And I would say by the third round, it was definitely, coming to pass that we definitely were all going to do another trip again, because, the amount of fun that we had within the 36 hours that we were together at that point, it was already, showing that, we were all going to be good buddies really, really fast and for a long time. So, Sandpiper, again, was just epic. I mean, that was the shit. And that was a great way to, get to the halfway point of our trip as well. So that night we stayed in Santa Barbara. Then the next morning we woke up, and we drove down to play Los Robles greens, which I don't think any of us had a lot of, info on or did a lot of research on. But Los Robles greens, I think, shocked all of us. It was a small track in just south of Rustic Canyon in Moore Park. I reached out to them prior to our trip, and they actually reached back out to us and, hosted us and gave us a great rate to come out and play. And I was pleasantly surprised with how great this course was maintained. in how tight the property was, but how different each hole was in and out. It was a great start to, our next day of golf prior to where I think we were all just as excited for Sandpiper. I think we were just as excited for Rustic. So Los Robles was a great lead up to that. Jack, what do you remember most of Los Robles greens?
I think we were playing the same day. There was like an AJGA tournament or something going on.
Yeah, it started at like 10. We teed off at like 8.
Yeah, so there's just kind of like one sticking point in my mind. But yeah, definitely to your point, it was like super tight. The holes were almost all of them were right next to each other. I think I would say probably, most surprising, but least favorite, like in terms of if I had to rank all the places that we played, I'd say there were just a couple of places that weren't as maintained as some of the other courses we played, but and honestly too, like there wasn't really much except for how like incredibly close together everything was that really stuck out to me in terms of the different holes or how it played. There's maybe that one, I think, like uphill par 4 or 5 that was like, there was like a tree in the middle of it that I thought was pretty fun. I always love like when courses have trees in the middle of it, because you're just like, what the fuck is that doing there?
Yeah, other than me shooting my best round there on the trip, I would say what I most remember about it is it being, built in the natural fescue style of golf, where it had a lot of the natural grasses grown out and built out to kind of create these giant fingering sand dune style bunkers with large fescue that surrounded them. I would say that stuck out to me the most. The design of the course, like you said, well designed for how tiny the lot was. I mean, to be able to fit 6,300 yards in the size of space that they shoved this into a, just outside of LA, being, a little bit of a city course. It was, pretty cool to see that design. But yeah, it was super tight, not as memorable as everything else. But I would say, a great lead up to, the course that we played after. Ashton, anything you remember sticks out for Los Robles?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm going to make the stipulation that I'm the same as you, Chris. I kind of blacked out and played great during this round. So that's probably going to definitely change my perception here. But a couple things. First of all, important to start off, unbelievable breakfast burrito.
Oh,
I know there was an issue.
Easily best breakfast burrito, best breakfast I think we had on the whole trip.
Well, yes, I would go so far as to say that like it exceeded that, because we ate a lot of McDonald's and this was significantly better than McDonald's. Like I would go toe to toe that I would say that it's probably a top, like it's the best golf course breakfast burrito I've had, and it's a top 5 breakfast burrito I've ever eaten. I would go that far. Like sauteed onions, sauteed peppers. I mean, like really nice touch. Also would like to make an apology on this podcast because I think it was me and Jack, or if Jack wasn't you, I'm sorry. We were waiting on our breakfast burritos, and instead of letting the guys behind us play, we just decided to tee off, and Big Chris, who's in a car.
They left me.
Yeah, it was there was no ill intent. But looking back, it was really stupid. Like, I don't know why we just didn't let the guys. They were literally standing there waiting on us. We could have let them play through. Again, just would like to make an apology to everyone, but mainly to you, Chris, publicly here. I'm sorry.
All I'll say is I took the first 3 skins on that round because I was furious that you guys left me. And so I stepped up to that first tee and ripped one down the middle, birdied the first hole, birdied the second hole, parred the third hole. And I just destroyed the first 3 holes.
Well, I remember pulling you aside and being like, hey, I'm sorry. I can tell you're a little hot under the collar. So that was, again, there was no ill intent. It was just us being morons.
No, and It was after I caught up with it. One thing you'll know about me, and the more rounds that you guys play with me, is I hate being rushed off the tee, and I hate being last minute right when I start a round. So showing up to that tee box and you guys were almost on the green of the first hole, and I had to wait back for the burritos, I was super irritated, and it wasn't more directed at you just because I had to rush my game for the first hole or two.
I hear you. But that's those are the first memories I have. I actually thought, again, yeah, I agree with y'all on the stipulation on it being a really small piece of property. I think it had a lot of interesting holes. Like I really liked number 18. They had the pond and the fountain in the front, but in a way that, like, I'm not a big fountain guy. I mean, we've heard Andy on Friday talk about the cost of keeping up a fountain, and it's egregious. It's bad. So, I don't want to compliment the fountain too much. I remember number 9 was a really short par 4 that had like a desert, like a literal desert in front of the green.
Yeah, it was only 291.
Yeah, dude.
Really short.
Like, I think I hit 6 iron off that tee. Like, you do not want to go far.
Because it had like you just said, it had a natural fescue desert style bunker that had to have been 20 to 30 yards deep across the entire front of the green. Yeah. So there was, none of us have a 300-yard drive to hit over that. So we all had to lay up on that hole. So a lot of us, for most of us, it was, 6 iron to 6 iron, or, whatever we had to do, but it was iron to iron to get to that hole. But it was, all of the holes were really interesting. I would say it was definitely more of a target style golf course, not a course you wanted to rip a driver on. I would say I probably hit driver twice, which for me, that's amazing, because I feel like Jordan Spieth, thank God Jordan Spieth is resurrecting his career a little bit in the last 2 tournaments he's played. But I feel like Jordan Spieth a little bit when I step up to the tee and not knowing where my ball is going to go half the time. So for a course that I can rip the clubs that I know I hit well, which, as you guys know now, my woods are definitely my clubs of choice for anything, and I can hit those on any spot I need. So I think that's why I really, really loved and appreciated this course. But yeah, it was a fun warm up. Great, a lot faster of a round than I anticipated. I think we got done with it right at 4, if not a little earlier than that. I will say, the people that play at Los Robles greens, we had a group of older gentlemen in front of us and behind us that booked it faster than any other group I've ever seen play a course. We had the group that behind us had to have all been in their 60s, that just were on us the entire round, and not menacingly or making any issues or anything. But and then the group in front of us were all 4 walkers in their 60s and 70s, and were just bolting. These guys were jetting, and I give mad respect to play a course on a Saturday and be able to get around right at 4 hours, sandwiched between 2 elderly groups. It was, so we had so much time that we were able to go back to the hotel, rest, change, do what we needed to do, and then make it out to Rustic Canyon, which was a great change of pace on this trip, because it was golf, drive, sleep, golf, drive, pretty much all the way up to that point. So, Chris,
the other thing I'm realizing too, I have not thought about this till we're talking about this piece of property, but if you think about it, Rustic is so the opposite of Los Robles, meaning like it's like probably the most expansive golf course I've ever played. So I think it's just kind of, I know you didn't do that on purpose, but like it's kind of crazy to play like like again, like we've talked about, there's certain holes like on that 9th hole I just mentioned with like the natural desert. This is going to sound crazy, but it kind of felt like, because I've never played here, but like it kind of felt like you're at Shadow Creek because you're hitting over this natural desert. And then in the background, there's the driving range net because it's such a small piece of property. Like you're banging balls in like a net. And then you go to Rustic where it's like, I remember that Jack hit it was on, I think like the 12th hole. Jack hit a 3-wood that hooked probably like 80 yards to the left, and like it literally went over the canyon. Like that golf ball, if we had 70 people, we could not have found that golf ball. And like that same shot at like Los Robles, like Jack actually hit the net at Los Robles because they have these like nets up on certain holes. Like you couldn't pick 2 different pieces of property, right?
It was so tight that they actually had to put up these, I would say, 30-foot nets off the tee boxes. So people didn't hit, a riot tee shots off to the next holes because they were so on top of each other. And like you said, coming up on the 9th hole, you do have a beautiful view with this great natural bunker that's in front of the green, but then right behind the green is rest in peace, their driving range, because their driving range unfortunately got blown down in the last storm that they had down in SoCal. So they lost their entire driving range and all the posts broke off and imploded in on itself. So, RIP driving range, Los Robles. But yeah, I mean, that was a really, really fun track that morning. And then like I said, we got to rest, change, get some food, and then we jetted over to what ended up being the holy grail of our trip. I would say it ended up being for every single one of us. We've all heard about Rustic Canyon. There's a lot of, social media that's talked about how great Rustic Canyon is, and a lot of other people, in the spaces have talked about, the course, and it had a lot of hype on it, and it for sure, in my opinion, lived up to the hype. So much so that we actually put it as one of our first stops on our next trip that we're going on in a couple of weeks. So I don't know how you guys, what was your thoughts pulling up to Rustic Canyon? I know driving out there, it was like, where the hell are we going? Because we left, the suburb, parts of Los Angeles and Moore Park and drove into the mountain canyons, off the beaten track to just pull into this random parking lot. So, Jack, what was your thoughts on pulling into Rustic and pulling down that drive down 1?
Yeah, I think I'll say that I love those golf courses that like your drive, like coming up to the property, you're kind of like you said, you're wondering where the fuck it's taking you, like especially like you said, where we came from was like pulling off the highway, and then you start turning all these different places. You turn into a residential area, and then like everything kind of starts disappearing, and you're literally like, dude, where the fuck is this golf course? I love those drives into properties, and
I like a good peekaboo too. So when you enter Rustic Canyon, I call it a peekaboo when there's a drive up to the parking lot that you get to see a lot of the golf course. So you get to see some really great holes and stuff that kind of tease you on your way in. Nothing gets me more excited and more juiced when I pull into a golf course and I get teased by it all the way into the parking lot.
Yeah, it was, I think it was definitely that I think once we cleared like that housing area or whatever it was, like it was great to start seeing it. You kind of pull up to the parking lot, and it's very like, chill is kind of an overused word for it, but it's just very like, hey, come play. Like it's no nonsense. Like it has, you see the driving range, you see the clubhouse, and it's like, you want food, come get your food, but like you're here to play golf and experience this course. Like I think that was one of the things that, looking back at it, was really great about not just how they set up, not just how they set up the whole course, but how they set up like that first like couple of minutes of being there, it made me feel like, yo, let's fucking go out and play golf. Like that's literally what it was. And it was great because you set up, you know, we tried to play 18 in that afternoon, but you know, we got through, I think 13 and had to drive back or ride back and whatever, because it was closing time. So I think for overall, like it definitely lived up to its name. And I think at that point, like probably why I wasn't so keen on Los Robles was just like, again, like I said earlier, just being in on my head about the trip and everything, like thinking more about the golf swing versus the game. But I think
you were unselfish, or you were selfishly also like your mind was already on Rustic while we were playing Los Robles.
I don't think it was. I really think I was just kind of like over like playing like shit basically, because I was just like, man, like I had, you know, literally like the whole summer I'd been playing the best rounds of golf in my life, like hold out, like I felt like I was holding out every round and like, you know, 2 or 3 birdies on the card. And then suddenly taking this trip, the first couple of courses that we played, I was playing like mega dog shit. So I think Rustic was like that feeling of getting there was very like, yo, come play and just enjoy yourself. Don't worry about it. And that first round that we had there was like, just kind of how I imagined, like, you know, going on a walkabout is like for an Aboriginal person. It's just like, you're finding your spirit in this game. And it was so fucking cool the way that like the weather was changing and the light was coming down. And I could go on and on about everything that I felt on that round. But one of the things that I really remember the most, like Ashton alluded to, was it was like driver off the deck into like 9-iron and a birdie on that first back, or I guess that back 9 that we played a little bit. But overall, I loved it. I loved the whole time that we got to, you know, spend there, and it was such an amazing, you know, layout just to have fun and hang out with friends.
Yeah. What about you, Ash? Pulling up, driving down the road, seeing, you know, 4, 3, 2, and 1 until you get into the parking lot. What was your feeling there?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me, and I'm sure y'all are probably on the same boat, is I couldn't get over the green complexes, because the biggest thing was I couldn't tell what the green complexes were, because for those of you who haven't been there or seen the pictures, the collar basically is like, if it is bigger, if it is higher than the green, it's not much higher. So it looks like the greens are, you know, I mean, basically you want to be putting from pretty much everywhere. It feels like anywhere around the green. I think that was my biggest shock, was like, oh my goodness, like these green, like I just got so excited to go out there and try to like putt on those greens or understand, because my first thought was I should putt from everywhere, which I mainly did. That's kind of what really grabbed me. But yeah, vibes were high. I mean, I think like we talked about, similar to Sandpiper, really nice weather, like definitely felt like we were in Southern California, nice and warm. Yeah, and I think that day, maybe it's just anecdotal, but I felt like we all played pretty well that day too. Because it felt like, to Jack's point, we kind of knew going in and weren't going to be able to play 18 holes. So I think there's something about that, is it should probably be a good instruction for us moving forward and playing golf every day. Is like, it kind of just felt like, cool, we're going to go out there, we're going to wet our whistle, we're going to have a couple beers, we're just going to kind of see the course and ready for tomorrow. And I think that was the most fun round we've played. I remember, like, to Jack's point, when he made birdie, I think I did too on that hole, and right as the sun is setting. And then I actually looked at these pictures earlier. They're horrible. The lighting is atrocious, but there's a picture of us on the green, like on that green as the sun setting down. One where Big Chris has his putter in between his legs, making a very grotesque face. Yeah, right. And that kind of summarizes the whole day. It was great.
Yeah, I mean, so stepping up, if you've never played Rustic Canyon, stepping up to the first tee, it's very, I would say it's the most unintimidating first tee box I've ever come to, because the fairway is so wide that you legit could turn football fields sideways and put like 4 football fields sideways next to each other. And that's how wide the fairway feels when you step up to that first
So
tee.
cue me jumping in. Day one, hit a mega hook right into the red hazard, which I thought I could find. And then Big Chris informed me that the green caps on top means it's environmentally protected, so you can't touch it. So my ball goes into the hazard. I lose it, have to drop. Day two, go, well, I'm not going to blow it right. Instead, blow it left. Worse, there's a road there. Blow it left OB, made a mega 5 from and Eric Randers Lang, this is for you. I dropped appropriately and still made it work, but made a 5 there. So Chris, I agree with you. I'm excited to, honestly, if I just get that ball in play, I'll be happy, because we played that course twice. I blew it right, I blew it left, and I'm pretty excited to get to your point. You can hit it anywhere. I just happened to, the 2 times we played there, I blew it off the planet. So please continue, sir.
Yeah, the easiest hole, and Ash could not get it in the fairway. I mean, I will say, we'll talk about this on the second round. We did have a incident with our buddy Christian on the back 9 on our second round of Rustic that was the most laughable tee experience I've ever had in my entire life. And like I said, we'll get into that. So we got to play the first round. We got 13 holes in. I would say by the 10th hole, the wind really picked up for us, and it just, so one thing with Rustic, it's the actual name is perfect for the golf course because it's in the most rustic setting you'll ever experience. Basically, the routing goes as far out as you possibly could think from the clubhouse and then loops right back in. And then on the back 9, it does the exact same thing. So with that, by the time you get in deep into the canyon on the back 9, towards the end of the day, the wind just comes flat out at you, and it is almost impossible on the holes going out in the routing back out towards the canyon. It was epic. I know Jack was just talking about, I think both of us hit driver, and then another iron on hole 13 just to get onto the green to keep it low enough so that we could actually, compete with that wind. It was absolutely ridiculous. So after we got, that spiritual round out of our system, and I would say that night when we went and got beers and grabbed some food at this great local restaurant there, we went back to the hotel. I think we watched what video? I think we watched some YouTube videos on Rustic Canyon and some other vlogs that some people have done to kind of get us psyched again, and then woke up the next morning, had a little bit later of a tee time than we're used to. We've been teeing off 6-7 o'clock in the morning the whole trip. So we had a nice little 8-10 tee time that we were able to get up, still didn't get to the golf course in good enough time. We decided to go get the breakfast burritos that they offer at Rustic Canyon, and we ran out of time, so they had to meet us on hole 2 to deliver them to us. I would say the second round was just the icing on the cake when it came to the entire trip. Showing up that morning, we were just all sad that the trip was ending. It was coming to a close, but stoked that we got to get the whole 18 in at Rustic after experiencing the 13 we had the day before. Ash, talk a little bit about, your feelings that morning, stepping out to Rustic, getting started.
Yeah, I was feeling really optimistic with how well I felt like I had been playing. I'll bury the lead and say that I shot 89. Looking at it, I shot 47 on the back 9, that was my worst 9 holes that I had all of last year, and we'll kind of talk about that with the wind. But I think I was really stoked because I think that, Chris, the day before, we had actually moved our tee time up, and Chris was a little bit frustrated because in that, when we took that tee time, they basically told us we had to play within a certain time limit, and we weren't kind of sure what they meant. But what it means is we really kind of got to dictate the entire pace of play for the day, which was actually fantastic. And then, we're all relatively fast players and like to play quickly. So I think that day it just felt, we were really efficient. One of the first group off. And I think also being able to have played it when it was like dry the day before, dry and kind of busy, being able to play it when it was a bit damp, kind of first thing in the morning, was a really cool juxtaposition. And it definitely is a course that, because of all the variety of shots, because of kind of what you can do on the greens, there are certain courses we played where I liked Los Robles greens, like I said, but do I feel like I need another crack at Los Robles greens? I don't. I'd play there again, but I don't. I left Rustic and was like, okay, first of all, I want to get another try at those. Also, secondarily, I need to see those last 5 holes. And I think that on our trip, I think it should tell you a lot about how much we love the course, about the fact that we're doing a second golf trip. And I don't even think we had a discussion about Rustic. It was sort of implied because it's that special of a place.
I would say Rustic Canyon and Monarch Dunes were definitely the 2 courses I'd play the most if I ever had a chance going through the areas. Like you said, Rustic Canyon, I'm so excited to play on the first day of our trip, going on the second trip, because it is the most special golf course I think I've ever played. Jack, what would you say the most, your favorite parts of Rustic Canyon? What makes it special and differs from some of the courses that we experience in the Bay Area?
You want me to compare it to courses in the Bay Area, or you want me to just highlight kind of what I really liked about it?
Yeah, just whatever makes it, a different experience and what we don't get to experience on a regular basis in the Bay Area.
I think I would say probably how expansive the routing was. I think looking back at the maps, it was basically starting from the clubhouse, like you said, south and then back north, and then you go north and then south again into the clubhouse. I thought that it made it really feel like a trip around the whole property, which was really cool. I think especially doing it, I think it was a real treat for us all to kind of see it and experience it, 2 different times of day. I think the going out on the front, going out to start the day was, I think probably rivals the best part of, the best time that I had, just because it was just super exciting going out there in the morning and being really this, first or second group out, and the greenskeepers still, sweeping dew and doing their things. I'd actually never gotten to see that on a golf course before. So it was really cool, seeing some of the guys still, sweeping the dew and cutting the grass and things like that. Yeah, so definitely the routing. One of the things that I really enjoyed about the walk was the parts where you had to go through basically a desert area to get to either a tee box or the next green. I thought that was super cool because it was I want to say it's probably after 4, going into 5. There's that part where you you kind of go through almost really a bush, and you're just holy shit. You literally go from all green to desert, and then you come out on the other side of the tee box at 5, and you're looking at the other side of the canyon. That experience was really crazy to me. I thought that was super fun. Some of the force carries I thought was interesting. I think there were some that was, I think Ashton said a duck hooked one into the side of a canyon. There was a like you said, Chris, a rustic little bulldozer, whatever the heck it was. But some of the force carries were really cool. One of the things that I thought was hilarious was the guy that was he was doing falconry. He had that freaking hawk that was catching jackrabbits or something. Like he literally caught one right in front of us.
Guy, literally, we're going down 13 second day. One of the craziest stories. Going down 13 second day. Look off to our right. There's a walking trail through the canyon that's kind of separated by a fence. And this guy's just walking along, like minding his own business, holding a fucking falcon. Like it's just a normal day. Like people just walk around falcons on their fucking arm. And he lets his falcon go. Next thing we know, it swoops down and arrives back to his arm with a rabbit. This guy was hunting rabbits with the falcon. I mean, something you are never going to see at another golf course. I mean, that's how rural this golf course is and how sick the landscape is.
Yeah.
You know, at Rustic Canyon. I mean, it's completely unmatched. I mean,
I think that was, you know, just like things like little things like that. I loved how just like, you know, it's basically like a great blend. I'm looking at the topography of it, and it's like, it's a great blend of desert and just grass. Also, surprisingly, that back nine had like some really cool elevation, which that was a thing that I was like really missing until we played, you know, 13 or 14. It was like, oh man, it's kind of a really flat course. And then we get to we get past 14 and it was just like super fun uphill. There's that one huge force carry, I think, on 14 that was ridiculous.
Yeah.
But
right over
overall,
the canyon.
Yeah, it was just like, where the frick do I put this ball? But yeah, man, like the routing too. The last thing I'll say about the routing was like how you could essentially on almost every hole, like from one to the other, you can feel or experience the wind change. I think there were a couple of holes, probably mostly on the back nine, where it was like you're going one way and you're facing the wind, you know, towards a hole. It's into it's into your face, and then the next hole, it's like you're helping win. So you're like hitting, you know, driver into like a short par 4 and 1, and the next hole you're like nuking I don't know, 2 hybrid or 2 iron. You're almost making a green on the next one. Like I thought that was really fun. So overall, I think it just gave us like a really like a wide breadth of experiences there. It wasn't just like a one-trick pony type of course, in my opinion. It was very like a good varied amount of experiences that it provided us for that round.
Yeah, and one thing I'll say about Rustic too is I think a lot of public courses and owners of public courses should go and play and check out Rustic, because it gives a very good example on how you don't need to have multiple cuts of rough and these perfectly manicured bunkers and all of these different things that these golf courses think that they need with these perfectly manicured ponds and fountain and everything to have a really great golf course. You just need to have well manicured fairways, an interesting, layout, and you don't need to have heavy rough. You don't need to penalize, players. You don't need all of this. I mean, you can having the fairways, mowed all the way out to the sides where there wasn't really any rough other than natural fescue that really was things that you'd get in trouble in, the protected lands that you couldn't step into. Other than those, I mean, that is the perfect epitome of how to do a golf course without needing to spend a lot of money on upkeep. And I think, that was a big thing that Jeff Shackelford, when he, went out to build this course and wanted to do it, it was, how do we use the natural grasses and the natural fescue and the natural land to create this course, to create minimal upkeep, but also have a world-class track for people to be able to play. And I mean, it's perfectly executed. And I think there's a lot of golf course architects and owners of golf courses and public courses that, you know, might be thinking of shutting down or creating these monstrosities of courses that should take a look at Rustic Canyon and take it, you know, a page out of their book on how to create these style of courses. And I think a lot of new courses being built nowadays are leaning more towards this style of golf course being built. I know the Corin Crenshaws of the world and the McClay kids and, you know, Tom Doak and Gil Hance, all of these guys are now leaning in towards, you know, minimal upkeep, you know, natural fescues and these things that are going to allow us to play these spectacular golf courses for long periods of time. And we're going to see less golf courses being built and then shut down 15 to 20 years later because the maintenance is insane and the amount of pollution that they create by all the chemicals that they use to keep the course as green as possible, you know. So Rustic Canyon, in my mind, that's why I think it's so spectacular as well, is you can have a world-class golf course that plays better than some of the top golf courses that I've paid hundreds of dollars to play. And that's the other thing. On our second trip, we're playing this on Thursday. We're paying $45 to play Rustic Canyon. I mean,
it's nuts.
$45, where they could easily charge $150 and I would pay that all day because the course is so good. And it, with that minimal upkeep and, you know, the minimal, you know, amount of money that they have to put in, it allows them to offer those rates to the public. And it's just incredible. Where like,
I think the other thing too, Chris, is like you're talking about, like, you know, I think sometimes when people hear like mown out fairways and like, you know, no rough and stuff, I think people can associate that with easy. I mean, again, like I said, I shot 47 on the back nine. And the other thing too is like, I think if y'all remember that second day, I think what, like, we were joking, not joking, like we wanted to play again. But I remember Jack was like super down and I was like, I wanted to get in the car so badly because like the wind was crazy. If you guys remember, like on the back nine, like I remember that number, looking at my card, number 13.
Yeah.
546 yard par 5. I remember I hit driver, hybrid, 7-iron wedge. Jack won that hole with a bogey. Like we all, me, you, and Christian all got punched so hard in the face. It's like it was 546, probably playing north of 600 yards, very honestly.
So speaking of 13, as we referred to the story earlier, our buddy Christian, who joined us on this trip on 13, steps up to the tee box and proceeds to hit 4 drives back to back OB left. And it had to have been the most hysterical moment of our entire trip because no matter how he positioned himself, how he angled himself, his ball was magnetically attracted to the OB left every single time. And I think Christian marked a 10 or 11 on that hole. I mean, it was bad.
1 in, 2 out, 3 in, 4 out, 5 and 7, 5. Whoa, holy cow. 1 in, 2 out, 3 in, 4 out, 5 and 6 out, 7 and 8 out. You're hitting 9 off the tee.
So at the point, by the time he decided to just drop by his 5th ball going OB, he would have hit a 12 or 13. I don't know what we recorded on that hole.
Equitable stroke control, baby.
Oh my God. It was the most tin cup moment I've ever experienced personally in my life. It was the funniest thing.
He couldn't do it.
He couldn't do it. Couldn't make it happen. But that trip was absolutely amazing. I mean, when I planned it, I didn't know who was going to join. I didn't know who I was going to meet on this trip. I was going to go on it by myself if nobody else was going to go. But I couldn't ask for better buddies that I ended up meeting on this trip. I mean, we became such good friends that me and Ash and Jack decided to start this podcast. So, we got Jack as our producer and Ash as my co-host. So, I mean, this was just one of the best experiences in my life. I can't wait for more of these experiences to happen. I don't know about you guys, but you two are definitely two of my lifelong friends now. So, I mean, it was epic.
Yeah. I mean, when you suggested trip number 2, I mean, we had to make sure. I was being a bit of a stick in the mud about COVID protocols that I think we're all probably aligned on, but if we could make it work, I knew that we had to do it. So I'm super excited about trip number 2.
Yeah, I'm actually thinking about changing my itinerary on the way back and like staying a whole day at Rustic. So like having you guys fucking drop me off at Rustic to play again on you guys' way back. But yeah, I'm the same way, man. I'm super excited to go down there.
You're gonna skip Dragonfly?
No. Like after Dragonfly, drop me off.
Dude, you're
Rustic.
nuts.
We'd have to go backwards.
No, I know. We'll see. I'll figure it out if I end up doing it.
And Big Chris, as a teaser, you want to tell the people what we're going to be doing at Dragonfly?
Yeah. So I'll give a little teaser of our trip coming up. So little different than last time. We're going a little bit more south. There's a few courses on all of our bucket lists that we kind of wanted to tackle on this trip. So we're going to start off by starting in at Soul Park. Then we're going to, same day, we're also going to play 18 at Rustic Canyon. And then we're going to drive down to Palm Springs. And we got a little hookup to go play the South and North course at Terra-Lago down there, which I'm really excited to play in Indio. Both courses look absolutely insane. And then one course that's on all of our bucket lists is Rams Hill. And so we're going to go down about an hour 20 south of where we're going to be staying in Palm Springs. And we're going to try to get 36 holes in there. Unfortunately, they wouldn't let us book 36 holes in advance. We could only get the morning 18. So as a backup plan, I booked tee time for the Pete Dye track at PGA West, just in case we couldn't get in and play, back-to-back 18s at Rams Hill. And then we're going to wake up in the morning and start driving back to the Bay Area and stop in Madera, Fresno area. And we're going to play the third longest course in California, which is called Dragonfly. I've heard epic things about this place. It gets pushed all the way to 7,900 yards. They don't call them the tips. They call them the waybacks at Dragonfly because they're so far back. And we've decided that we're going to try to play from the waybacks, and we're going to
not try. We're doing it.
We're doing it. We're going to play from 7,900 yards, and we're going to try to break 90. So I don't know if we're even going to hit fairways from these tee boxes. We might be hitting out of the rough before we even get to the fairway on our first shots. We will see. But this is going to be a challenge. I'm really excited for this next trip. I'm excited for Jack and Ashton to join again on this trip. We got our buddy Chris Hussey, who will be on a later podcast to talk. We're going to do some live streaming on this trip as well. We're going to jump on the Instagram. We're going to do some live video on there throughout our trip as well. And then we're going to do some live podcast recording throughout the trip after each day. So I'm really excited about what's coming on the podcast. I'm excited for our next trip. I'm excited for the future guests that we have coming on as well. We've got some great things coming up on the pod. So, guys, excited to go on another adventure with you fellas.
Yes, sir. Jack, thanks for joining, man.
Yeah,
Thanks for joining, Jack.
Anytime you guys need me.
All right, guys. Thanks for joining us. And again, we were the MuniciPals podcast, and have a good one.